What if I told you fear was never real, only rehearsed, not a force, not a fact, just a familiar fiction you've repeated so many times? Your brain mistook it for truth. What if the voice that's held you back for years, the one that says you're not ready, you'll fail? They'll laugh, wasn't you at all? But a worn-out script you forgot you could rewrite, because fear isn't the enemy. Surrender is. Fear doesn't win when it whispers. It wins when you obey. Let's be clear, we're not here today to manage fear. We're not here to cope with it, soothe it, or analyze it. We're here to destroy it. Not with hype, not with fake confidence, but with what works: truth, discipline, exposure. And above all, a mindset forged in the philosophy of Napoleon Hill. Because Hill didn't just teach us how to think and grow rich, he taught us how to think so clearly, so purposefully, that fear no longer gets a seat at the table. This is your war cry. This is the day you take the mic back. And when you do, fear dies. Let's begin. Let's clear up the biggest misconception most people carry their entire lives. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is a natural reflex, a survival mechanism inherited from your ancestors. It's not evil. It doesn't want to destroy you. It simply wants to protect you from anything unfamiliar, uncomfortable, or uncertain. But here's the catch. Fear was designed to keep you alive, not to keep you small. What was once a useful alert system, watch out for danger, has become a barrier to greatness. Not because fear is too strong, but because we've made a fatal mistake, we obey it. Let me ask you something. How many times have you had a brilliant idea, only to second-guess yourself into silence? How often did you walk away from a moment that could have changed everything because your brain whispered, "This could go wrong"? That whisper didn't kill your dream. Your inaction did. Fear is not the killer. Hesitación is every time you pause because of fear, every time you delay, defer, or decide to wait, you reinforce a dangerous pattern in your mind. I only act when I feel safe. But here's the problem. Safety is a moving target, and you will never feel ready. The world doesn't send you a signal that says now's the perfect moment to be bold. That's a fantasy. Courage doesn't knock politely. It's forged in the fire of action. And this is where Napoleon Hill's wisdom becomes razor sharp in Think and Grow Rich. Hill wrote, fear is just a state of mind, one which can be controlled and directed. Action is the real measure of intelligence. Hill didn't say, wait until fear fades. He said, direct your mind, take control, and then move, especially when it's uncomfortable. Let me show you what that looks like in real life. The man who hates public speaking, but says yes to the stage anyway. The woman who fears rejection, but still submits her manuscript. The student who doubts his worth, but raises his hand to lead. They didn't kill fear, they outperformed it. They understood a simple truth. Most never learn. You don't need to destroy fear before acting. You need to act before fear finishes speaking. Fear thrives in hesitation. It grows in silence. It feeds on the pause between idea and action. But when you move, when you speak, step, launch, call, try, you interrupt that pattern. You send a louder message to your mind, fear doesn't drive this anymore. I do. And each time you do it, the fear shrinks just a little. Not because it disappears, but because you stopped obeying it, you stopped giving it the mic. And that's when something powerful shifts. You begin to trust yourself again. So the next time fear rises in your chest, don't wait for it to vanish. Move through it, not after it fades, but before it convinces you to stop, because fear isn't the threat. Inaction is, and the cost of hesitation is a life half-lived. Your greatest battles don't happen in the outside world. They happen in the 6 inches between your ears. And if you don't learn how to control what happens there, you'll live a life constantly manipulated by what never happened anywhere else. You see, fear doesn't begin with reality. It begins with imagination. It starts with a thought, then a second thought, then a chain reaction of stories you've repeated so many times. Your brain filed them under truth. What if I mess up? What if they laugh? What if I'm not good enough? What if it's too late? These thoughts aren't proof. They're just practice. Mental rehearsals. Loops that your subconscious memorizes through repetition until they become your emotional reflex. And here's what most people never realize. Fear isn't a fact, it's a pattern. And patterns can be broken. Napoleon Hill said it clearly. The mind is nothing more than a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. But most people let their mental station run wild, picking up every signal of fear, doubt, and limitation, and then wondering why life feels so heavy. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever walked into a room already convinced you didn't belong before anyone even spoke to you? Have you ever skipped applying for the job? Not because you weren't qualified, but because your mind told you a story that said they'd never pick someone like you. You weren't rejected. You rejected yourself first. That's not fear. That's mental programming. And if you don't interrupt it, it becomes your permanent operating system. But here's the breakthrough. If fear is trained into the brain through repetition, confidence can be. 2. If you can visualize the worst-case scenario, you can also visualize the best. If you can rehearse rejection, you can rehearse resilience. The brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and memory. So if you keep replaying the fear, your body will treat it like it's real. But if you feed your mind with courage, repetition, clarity, it rewires the loop. This is what Hill meant when he spoke of autosuggestion through repeated suggestion. The mind becomes convinced and acts accordingly. Not once, not when you're in the mood, but daily. So here's the challenge. If you want to change your life, don't start by changing your schedule. Start by changing the story you've been feeding yourself every morning. Before fear takes the wheel, you write the script. I act even when I'm afraid. I show up even when I shake. I choose progress over protection. I am not my fear. I am the one who moves through it. Say it, write it, repeat it, and then go live like it's true. Because when your actions match your new thoughts, your brain adapts. It upgrades your identity. It stops defaulting to survival and starts executing your purpose. So the question is no longer, what am I afraid of? The question is, what story have I allowed fear to write in my mind? And am I willing to replace it? You either train your thoughts or you will be trained by fear. The choice is always yours. We live in a culture obsessed with comfort. We avoid awkward moments, shy away from hard conversations, scroll past our own potential, all in the name of safety. But here's a brutal truth. Most people never want to hear. What you avoid will own you. Fear doesn't shrink when you ignore it. It grows in the silence. It gets stronger every time you walk away. And the only thing more dangerous than fear itself is the life you don't live because of it. Think about it. That business you never launched, that person you never asked out, that book you never wrote, it wasn't logic that stopped you. It was imagination, fear, exaggerating the unknown until you froze. And you know what? That fear might feel real. But until it's tested, it's just theory. That's why exposure kills fear. Not thinking, not journaling, exposure. Imagine standing at the edge of a freezing pool. You dip your toe in, it's unbearable. You walk away, come back tomorrow, still cold, still terrifying. It doesn't change. But now picture this. You jump in, full body shock, breath knocked out, total discomfort. But 10 seconds later, your body adapts. You're no longer afraid, not because the water changed, but because you did. That's exposure. And that's the only way to kill fear at the root. What you repeatedly expose yourself to, you eventually normalize. And what's normal no longer controls you. This is what Napoleon Hill hinted at when he said, "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. You don't build confidence by waiting until you feel strong. You build it by doing the thing while your hands are shaking, your heart's pounding, and your mind is begging you to run. Let me show you what it looks like. The entrepreneur who sends out 10 pitches before breakfast, even after 9 rejections. The artist who posts their first piece online, even when no one claps. The student who finally speaks up in the room full of people, even if their voice cracks. They didn't get rid of fear. They walked through it, and in doing so, they took away its power. Here's the psychology. Every time you take a bold action in the presence of fear, your brain collects new evidence. I didn't die. That wasn't as bad as I imagined. I can do that again. And that repeated daily rewires your nervous system. You develop what psychologists call distress tolerance. You don't flinch anymore. You don't freeze. You adapt. Your nervous system evolves into resilience. The first time, terrifying. The 5th time, uncomfortable. The 50th time, normal. The 100th time, freedom. So what does this mean for you right now? It means you stop waiting for the fear to fade. You stop praying for a miracle moment of clarity. You act. You step into the fire. You post the video. You make the call. You write the first sentence. You say the hard truth. You show up even shaking, because every time you do, you're not just facing fear. You're redefining yourself. You don't become fearless by thinking about fear. You become fearless by training your nervous system to walk through it again and again until fear becomes just another signal. Not a stop sign. Let fear show up. Let your knees shake. But take the step anyway. That's not weakness. That's how warriors are made. Motivation gets you started, but only discipline gets you free. You see, the fear doesn't vanish because you feel inspired. Fear doesn't disappear just because you've read enough quotes. Fear dies when there's no more room left for it to grow, and that only happens when you move every single day, whether you feel like it or not. Discipline is how you suffocate fear. Let's get honest. Motivation is seductive. It's loud. It feels good, but it's a liar. It only shows up when the weather is right, the energy is high, the pressure is low. And guess what? That's not how real life works. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't ask questions. It doesn't need the perfect playlist or a fresh burst of confidence. Discipline executes on command. That's what makes it so dangerous to fear. Because discipline removes negotiation. There's no should I, there's no am I ready, there's only I said I would. So I will. This is exactly what Napoleon Hill called definiteness of purpose. When one is truly determined and burns all bridges behind them, they enter a state where defeat is no longer possible. That's not motivation. That's mental warfare. And fear doesn't survive in that state. Let me show you what discipline looks like in the real world. The man who gets out of bed at 5 a.m., even though he slept 4 hours. The woman who works on her dream 1 hour a night after her kids go to sleep. The teenager who hits record for the 87th time because he refuses to let perfection delay his voice. Discipline is not glamorous, but it's sacred because it proves to your subconscious that you're in control now, not fear, and something miraculous happens when you stack disciplined actions. Day after day, your identity begins to shift. Fear no longer recognizes the man you're becoming. You're no longer someone who tries. You're someone who does. You're not hoping to be confident someday. You're showing up like confidence is already your standard. That's the difference between emotion-driven living and principle-driven living. And when you live by principle, fear loses its grip because there's nothing left to debate. You already decided, I don't move because I feel like it. I move because I said I would, and every time you do that, when you do the work in silence, when you keep your word without applause, when you choose your mission over your mood, you send the message to fear, you're not welcome here anymore. So if you're tired of being ruled by hesitation, stop chasing inspiration. Start building discipline, because fear might knock, but discipline never opens the door. Let's be brutally honest. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And if your daily rituals are built around comfort, distraction, or delay, then fear will always find a way back in, because fear doesn't just attack in big moments. It creeps into your mornings, it slips into your scroll. It hides in the space between I should and I will. The truth, your routine, is the truth teller, not your dreams, not your ambition, your habits. The person who defeats fear isn't the one who waits for courage, it's the one who builds structure so strong, fear has no room left to breathe. So if you want to suffocate fear, you don't just need motivation, you need rituals. Let's break it down. Ritual 1. Do something uncomfortable every morning. Before the world gets a chance to influence your mood, you act. Not later. Right now. Cold shower. Tough workout. Challenging journal prompt. Call you've been avoiding. It doesn't have to be massive. It just has to trigger discomfort. Why? Because discomfort is the language of growth, and when you train your nervous system to stay calm under pressure, you're teaching it. We don't retreat, we lead. This isn't just psychology, it's neurology. Small acts of stress. Dawn daily. Build mental toughness. You don't flinch anymore. You don't wait. You move. Ritual 2. Train your mind before the world pollutes it. Napoleon Hill called it autosuggestion, the practice of deliberately planting thoughts into the subconscious mind before it's hijacked by fear, opinion, and noise. So before you check your phone, you lock in with affirmations that shape identity. I act before I feel ready. I lead even when I'm afraid. Fear is not my guide, purpose is. 5. Visualization. You don't imagine surviving the day. You imagine leading through it. Written declarations today. I build momentum. Today, I earn self-respect. What you rehearse becomes who you are. So make sure you're not accidentally practicing hesitation. Ritual 3. Move your body. Move your fear. Fear loves a still body. It thrives in passivity, in low energy, in lethargy. So move every single day. Not for abs, not for aesthetics, but for alignment. Because when your blood moves, your energy rises. When your breath deepens, clarity returns. When your body is in motion, your confidence activates. A strong mind needs a strong vessel, and a strong vessel starts with sweat. This is why Hill spoke of definiteness of action, because action trains belief, not the other way around. Ritual 4, win early. Win often. You don't need to win the whole day. You just need to win the first hour. Make your bed. Finish the thing you've been avoiding. Push through that first layer of friction. Why? Because the mind loves evidence. When you win early, you create momentum. And momentum, not motivation, is what gets you through the hard middle. Stack those wins. Let them compound. Build your self-trust like bricks, one act at a time. Ritual 5. Reflect ruthlessly each night. Before you go to sleep, ask yourself, where did fear whisper today? Did I obey it or override it? Where can I be bolder tomorrow? This isn't guilt. It's data. You're becoming a student of your patterns. And if you review your days with honesty, you can adjust in real time, not after you've wasted weeks avoiding the hard thing. These rituals don't just help you manage fear, they corner it. They squeeze out its oxygen supply, because fear doesn't survive in motion. It dies when you refuse to give it shelter in your systems. Rituals don't make you perfect. They make you predictable under pressure, and that is where confidence is born. You don't need more motivation. You need rhythm. You need structure. You need a routine so sharp, so intentional, that fear has no seat left at your table. Fear fades in the presence of ritual. And ritual, that's a decision you make every single day. After everything we've covered, the thoughts you think, the actions you take, the rituals you repeat, it all leads to this one moment, a battle not outside, not with the world, but inside, where every transformation either happens or dies. It's the battle between the version of you that obeys instinct and the version of you that chooses identity. Let's break this down. Instinct is survival. It's old programming. It tells you, stay safe, don't stand out, play small, just in case, wait for the right moment, let's do it tomorrow. This voice is ancient, and it feels so real because it's rooted in thousands of years of biology. It's the same system that once kept you from getting eaten by tigers, but now it keeps you from sending an email, making a call, or speaking your truth. Instinct says, shrink until you're invisible. But here's the problem. You weren't built to survive. You were built to evolve, to rise, to lead, to expand into the kind of person that fear cannot command. And for that, instinct must be dethroned. This is where identity comes in. Identity doesn't ask, what do I feel like doing? Identity says, what would the person I want to become do right now? That's the question that changes everything. Because now you're not reacting from emotion, you're acting from intention. Let's say you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're unsure. Old you would scroll, delay, make excuses. But new you knew. You has rituals. New, you has a standard. New, you already decided. I train when it's hard. I lead when it's uncomfortable. And when you start behaving like the person you want to be, not the person you used to be, something incredible happens. Your mind catches up. Your belief system upgrades. Your identity rewires. And guess what? Fear doesn't know how to survive in that version of you, because that version of you is clear. That version of you is decisive. That version of you says, I speak. Even when my voice shakes, I act. Even when doubt whispers, I move, especially when fear rises. This is how warriors are forged, not by erasing fear, but by replacing instinct with identity, moment by moment, decision by decision. So here's your final challenge. Whenever fear speaks, and it will, you don't argue with it. You don't try to outthink it. You ask yourself one question: what would the man I'm becoming do right now? And then you do that. You don't wait. You don't negotiate. You move, because that is who you are now. Not someone who listens to fear, but someone who acts from purpose. Not someone who reacts to life, but someone who creates it. This is the final battle, instinct versus identity. And only one gets to lead your future. If you've made it this far, and you already know this isn't just a video, it's a line in the sand, a declaration, that fear may knock, but it doesn't get a vote. That hesitation may whisper, but it no longer commands your steps. That you are no longer waiting to feel ready. You are becoming ready by doing. This is not hype. This is who you are now. You've walked through resistance. You've stepped into the fire. You've chosen discipline over delay. And now, you don't just understand what it means to destroy fear, you've begun living it. So here's your next step. Subscribe to Think Rich Mindset Hub, because this journey is just beginning. Drop a comment below. I choose identity over instinct. Let the algorithm know we're building a new breed of thinkers, fearless, focused, and forged for greatness. And finally, share this video with someone who needs to break free, because transformation isn't something you watch, it's something you live. Let's go. No more waiting. No more shrinking. No more playing small to fit the comfort of fear. You've already buried the old story. Now build a new one fearless day at a time. We'll walk with you every step